The Spanish announce table.
So, Tim, we finally have heard a response to the podcast from Jon Moxley, a.k.a. Dean Ambrose. The response from a WWE current employee and the top guy, arguably, in WWE.
He is no employee, sir.
Oh, that is true. Independent contractor. I stand corrected. But we have now heard a response from a current WWE wrestler, arguably, like I said, the top guy, Seth Rollins.
He's not a wrestler, sir. He's a sports entertainer in his independent
superstar. Well, he's a superstar.
That's true. He's a superstar, right?
So Seth Rollins, long story short, Seth Rollins has responded on the Sports Illustrated Media podcast
and Twitter.
About how he feels people, essentially paraphrasing, kind of putting words in his mouth, but how he feels people need to shut up, that the criticisms of WWE aren't necessarily all fair, and that people like Dean Ambrose couldn't hack it or couldn't take the rigors of what the WWE schedule is. So he took his ball and went home. That's actually a quote. He did say Dean Ambrose took his ball and went home. Now that sounds like something else we've heard, right? Stone Cold Steve Austin left. What did The Rock say? And it seems like, well, there was one variable there that was constant in both of those stories, and it's Vince McMahon. So take your ball and go home might be a Vince McMahon line that he's telling Seth Rollins to say. Not saying that that's the case, but from an outsider's perspective, that's what it seems. We've obviously talked about the criticisms we have of WWE. I felt like Seth Rollins, I feel like he was fair in his response, saying like, look, you know how much we do here? It's easy to always criticize the top guy or the top promotion, but we're the top promotion for a reason. We do this and this and this and this. And I feel that's fair. But again, calling yourself the best or saying that this is the standard barrier, that's subjective, right? Like we could see the same thing and you could say that's the best and I could say that's average. Like It doesn't necessarily mean.
Yes. Just because you're the most profitable and you do it the most doesn't mean you're the best.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, take for example, music, right? At one point, Ashley Simpson, if you remember her, Jessica Simpson's sister, had the #1 album in America. That does not mean that she was making better music than Jack White or that she was making better music than Jay-Z. It just means that this many people liked that sound of music. And that's what I think pro wrestling is, right? Like, we all have to accept what pro wrestling is. But if you enjoy Lucha Underground better than WWE, great. And we've talked about this before too, but you know, there's so many subcategories in this niche fandom of pro wrestling that there's enough room for everyone. If you like your stupid Young Buck stuff, which I think is dumb, but you like it, great. I prefer mat-based wrestling. If you don't like that, don't watch it. I won't watch the Young Bucks. Like, you know what I'm saying? We don't always have to say it's all or nothing here.
Well, but so, and I listened to this podcast also, and I mean, he did say those things, but like, he also said, like, when he watched Game of Thrones, a show he loved, that he was like, I mean, honestly, I didn't have any expectations, so whatever it was fine. It's like, cool. Again, how numb have you become to this meaning anything or this doing anything, man? Like, you're also bragging about being the top guy of what? Something somebody else wrote for you that you just go out and do whatever? Like, okay, cool, but then don't act like that's not what it is. And that is vanilla garbage nonsense. And the only reason the allegiance is there to you is because everybody else that puts out has shown that they can't even tie their fucking shoes along the way, right? We're hoping AEW is different because there's active money of people who have been very successful, even more successful than Vince McMahon as far as businesses go, now backing this thing, right? That's rarely ever been the case outside of WCW for a little while, and that even still got screwed up, right? So the only reason is because you're the only one producing even marginal okay stuff to watch is the only reason you're still this successful. Here's what we're telling you. You realize how much we do? It's too hard to be that good at doing this. Hey, here's what we've all been saying. Don't do it so goddamn much.
Exactly. That was my response to what I heard from Seth Rollins is when he says, do you understand what we do? We do what 500 matches or whatever it is, 300 days, media and all that. Yeah.
Right.
And then whatever it was, all those numbers that he was saying, the 300 media appearances a month and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that is impressive, right? If I write that down, I am impressed by your work ethic, but your work ethic doesn't mean you're the best, right? There's plenty of people that outwork me from their work ethic, but that doesn't mean that if we're doing the same job, that person's going to be better than me. Mm-hmm. That's not always the case.
Well, and here's another thing that, again, I've been hollering. It's the same thing Dean Ambrose said. Yeah, let's say you've got 500 events a year, right? And you have 365, and some people are hitting, you're not doing every one of those 500 events, but you're hitting a large portion of them. What Dean Ambrose most recently said, and what other people have been saying, is you've got 4 brands running right now, and you've got almost everybody under the sun who you haven't gotten into a bad relationship with or is otherwise unemployable. Employable being a word that I want to hit on there. And you've got them all running around to the same, essentially, set of 500 events. It's not like you split those 500 amongst 4, and now it's 125 for one brand. Holy crap, that's way easier for all the people involved. That's way, you know what I mean? You can have various, far different brands, so it does appeal to a wider breadth of audience so that you wouldn't have people going this sucks. Because if I didn't like Raw because you made it that way, I would go watch SmackDown because it was a completely different program. But no, that's not what you want. That's what you refuse to do. So it's a fair criticism to say that this isn't, I don't like this and I want you to change it before somebody else gives me what I want you to, you know what I mean?
Right.
That's all the people are saying, and they keep going, fuck off.
You're right. Yeah, but I will say that Seth Rollins did make valid points by saying, look at our production that you take for granted. Look at how we present an in-ring product. There are things that we take for granted as WWE being the top dog, right? If you were to watch a Ring of Honor show and a WWE show, for one, you can see everything in a WWE ring. Ring of Honor, we might not necessarily say the same. And there's more continuity, generally speaking. I know we can poke holes in a lot of things, but generally speaking, in a WWE product, right? We understand stories, not just this random match, but that was cool. I guess it happened. That happens a lot in other promotions. So I understand Seth Rollins' feelings because he understands what they're going through day to day. But as an outsider looking in, again, best is subjective, but I feel he also needs to take a step back and realize, WWE's great for you because you've been pushed since day one in this promotion. It's like white guys saying there's nothing wrong with America. It's well, duh, because you have all the privilege and advantages. Of course, Seth Rollins is going to think WWE's the best. Name a time when he wasn't being in the top spot or near it, right? And so, yeah, he's never going to have a criticism because for him, if everyone had his type of work or, his booking, they would love it. And he loves it. So why shouldn't he say he loves it? To him, it's awesome.
The Spanish announce table.